White people being colonized by so-called white people. There's your Aryan Brotherhood, so let's get clear. Let's get clear on what Europe actually was before the concept of whiteness was invented. Because it is a completely invented concept. For most of recorded European history, the overwhelming majority of Europeans lived in abysmal squalor. Absolutely abysmal squalor. You can't imagine the conditions. You would recognize it today as extreme poverty if it even exists anywhere today. I'm talking about a level of destitution that's difficult to comprehend from a modern point of view. From a modern vantage point, medieval European peasants, and peasants was most of them, the vast majority. About 4 out of every 5 people was a peasant. They lived in a one-room hut, dirt floors. They shared it with their livestock, literally. The animals slept in the same space that they slept in for warmth. Sleeping with your goats and sleeping with your pigs, that's your history. The average life expectancy at birth was in the mid-30s. Half of all children died before the age of 5. 1 in 5 women died in childbirth. Famine was absolutely common. It was routine. The Great Famine of the early 14th century killed 10 to 15% of all of Europe's entire population. Then the Black Death came, the bubonic plague, and that took out another third, or some say up to a half of the population of Europe. This is the conditions that they came from. So understand the real history of the people that we're talking about here, okay? In history, some kind of block of so-called white unity or white fraternity. Nobody ever thought like that. Nobody had anything even remotely like that in their minds. And during all that time, by the way, the church, your church, they owned up to a third of all the land in Europe. The aristocracy owned almost everything else, and the peasants worked the land. They couldn't leave the land. They had to pay tithes to the church. They had to pay taxes to the feudal lord. They couldn't leave the land. They couldn't even get married without permission. They were literally legalized. They were legally bound to the soil. Not metaphorically. Legally bound. You were a serf. You were a serf. You came with the property. You understand? You came with the property. If the land was sold, you were sold with it. That's your history. You weren't human beings. You were farm tools. You were instruments. Instruments for other people who you would later classify as white, but who did not see you and who did not treat you in any way whatsoever as equals. They didn't even treat you as human beings. They didn't treat you as people. White on white subjugation, white on white predation. That's the history of Europe. That's the history of Europe. White on white violence, white on white war, conflict and strife. And if you're paying attention, that's Europe's future too. That's their future too. That's where they go. And if you're paying attention, you'll notice that not much at all has changed. Even after they started calling themselves so-called white, instead of calling themselves English, or calling themselves white instead of French or German, or what have you. The same system is essentially what you have right now in Europe. In America, that's the feudal system. Europe's great civilizational achievement, the feudal system, before they went out and colonized everyone else. And that's still what you have today. In fact, it's the only organizational approach that you have to your societies, centuries later. Now I've talked before about how in Europe, across Europe, before Christianity, these people were pagans. They worshipped the jinn. They had relationships with the jinn, with the shut-in. That's not me saying so. This is the historical record. This is the historical record. The Germanic tribes, Odin, Thor. They had blood sacrifices. Yes! Blood sacrifices, they did that. They did animal animals mostly, but they also did human sacrifices, and that is documented. They sacrificed human beings. The Norse people took seasonal ritual offerings that included humans, the Vikings and whatnot. We all know they used to hurl old people off of the mountaintops. When they got too old, they'd throw them off a cliff. You had the Druids among the Celtic people. They had these large windows, they had these large wicker structures into which they would put human beings, and they would set them on fire,
burn them alive as offering.
Oh, these were brutal people. The devils that they worshiped commanded them to do all sorts of heinous things.